Hey, and welcome back to the second book in the book club iteration. Today we have 12 Rules for Life by Dr. Jordan B. Peterson. I know my channel is just starting out. I did get a couple of subscribers, but no one commented about the next book I should read, and that's okay. I did receive a comment from, I believe, is a bot. They want me to give them money, so I guess that's exciting. And somebody told me I need to increase my volume, which I think my last two uploads and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, I think they're a bit louder. So I'm working out the kinks, but we're gonna go with this book, nonfiction, and I was recommended it by a few of my friends and just people in general that aren't in my immediate circle, but that just happen to be online. So this is 12 rules. It's about 360 pages, and each rule's, well, the first rule is 30 pages, so 12 times 30 is 360. So I think I'm just going to cover one rule at a time for each video. We're not going to go with the 50-page rule because it'd be kind of difficult to cover like 1 1/4 pages, or I guess 1 1/4 rules. That'd be kind of odd. So we'll just take it one rule at a time, and plus this book is dense anyway. There's a lot of things to cover in each rule. So I think one video per rule should suffice. So I read the, I read the, what's it called? The foreword, and then I also read the overture. And then I guess today we'll just talk about the very first rule, which is stand up straight with your shoulders back. And I enjoyed this chapter and this rule, and let's get into it. So, checking out my notes here, the first thing we're going to cover is on page 5. On page 5, Peterson talks about how different animals will say hello to each other, such as bearded dragons. They'll wave their front legs to show that they're nice to each other, and we don't want to fight or anything. And dolphins will have like a specialized song and stuff like that. And I find that interesting because humans do the same thing, although it's different culturally. Like here in the US, typically, if you're passing a stranger on the side, like I was doing it today, I was on a run, you just I give each other's nods, or you give each other a little smile, and you go on with your day. You're like, hey, good morning. But I know I've seen online that a lot of Europeans tend to, like even Eastern Europeans, they get weirded out by I guess it's common, the American smile. So if you're just passing someone and you smile, they get weirded out by that. I think either they think the person who is smiling is like about to rob them, or they're being fake and not as genuine. And honestly, there's some truth to that. I guess when I'm smiling, I'm just like, oh, hey, how you doing? I may not be like ecstatic to see this random stranger that I'm going to pass by and I'm doing this exchange for 3 seconds. So I guess it's not fully genuine, but it's just something we do in the US, where I guess they do other things to greet each other, or they may just not even acknowledge each other over there in Europe. So I thought it was interesting that different creatures have their habits, and there's even variation among creatures, especially in humans, on how they'll greet each other. Page 7. Okay, so page 7, he is discussing the lobsters fighting. So you get to level 4, where one lobster's either going to die or have a limb severed off, something like that. And the lobster that loses, they change their brain. Their brain changes to become like a subordinate brain, and it no longer functions the way it does. It knows that it's kind of like a loser, and it takes on its new lowly position. And the original brain just isn't sophisticated to manage the transformation from king to bottom dog. Excuse me. And I guess it's just kind of getting humbled. It reminded me of the time when I was first learning to drive. I had my learner's permit. I was 15 and a half, I think is when you can get the permit. And I was then, because I got my license within the month of my 16th birthday. So I had to be somewhere in the 15 and a half range. And I remember I was backing out the car because I was going to go practice with my dad. And I had already like driven a few times before, and I was like, oh, I got this. This is so easy, you know. It's just the typical cocky teenager, and my driveway is kind of. I had to like go at an angle around my mom's car to back out the old car that I was learning to drive in. And I was backing out and I was going pretty quick. I had my sunglasses on. I was like, oh yeah, I got this. This is easy. And as I was backing out, I was coming at an angle like this to avoid my mom's car. And then I was trying to straighten out so that way I could just back right out of the driveway and not go over the grass. And I didn't know about a thing called front end swing, which means that so I was starting out like this, and then as I'm straightening out, the front of my car, which is my fingertips here, you know, it swings back forward like this. And I clipped my mom's car because I had cleared it from the back end, but I did not notice what was going on in the front end. And my dad happened to be walking out as I was doing it, and I heard it when I hit my mom's car, and I saw his face, and he was just like, and he came running over to me, and he was like, yeah, we didn't explain to you what front end swing was. And from that day forward, I always remember to check the front, but also it was very humbling. And oh man, it really crushed me on the inside, especially driving that day. I was not my normal self, you know. It changed, I guess, you know, my brain chemistry. I did not have the confidence. I did not have the serotonin that Peterson was talking about. My confidence had been shattered, and you know, I think I definitely have my confidence back with driving, but I still remember that, and I still always feverishly check the front end of my car because of what happened that day. And you know, I guess, you know, all I'm trying to say is that it happens in humans too, and I think Peterson wants us to realize that as well, that we can take on that transformation and get that subordinate brain, and so you just got to be careful. Okay. So on page 11, Peterson is talking about the dominance hierarchy here, and he says that we know that lobsters have been around for, you know, more than 350 million years. They've been along longer than the dinosaurs, and in that, it means that the dominance hierarchy that Peterson talks about, that he thinks is instilled in humans, has been around that long. So he's just trying to say that since it's been around that long, it seems like that's not going away, that there's a permanence there. And you know, it's kind of a struggle, because I think as humans we like to think that we're different than lobsters. You know, lobsters are these primitive beings, and you know, they live to eat and breed and then die. And humans basically do the same thing, but we also think that, you know, we can create things. Like I'm creating a YouTube channel here. We're trying to have a deeper conversation about this book. You know, it's lobsters wouldn't think like that. So can't we get out of like this primitive mindset of the dominance hierarchy, which you know, I think maybe you can, but I think that's also like the arrogance Peterson is talking about before. I know he's big into reading about communism and the Nazis and stuff like that, and you know, trying to create this utopian world in the communist regimes that ended up killing hundreds of millions of people in the name of utopia, trying to create like this equal playing field, and there's not any dominance hierarchy. And I think he is right in that the dominance hierarchy is present in humans, and it's hard to get away from that, and we can try to fight it, and we can be nice, and I think we do. I think humans are different than lobsters. We don't just try to fight each other every time. There is cohesion among us, and I think, you know, it is kind of naive to think that everyone's a good person, and I think you can be like abused. I think Peterson talks about that. You know, you can be taken advantage of when you're just naive like that, but you can't just go around thinking that everyone's out to get you, because then there is no cohesion. But when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, if it's going to be me or you, obviously I'm going to be selfish, and I'm going to have those instincts to preserve myself and to have my life continue over yours, no matter what that is, whether that's like a physical challenge or a mental challenge, or we're in a fight with each other. I'm going to try to preserve myself over you. And I think that's where that dominance hierarchy comes into play, that no matter how nice we are to each other and trying to change that, I think it will always be in there. The self-preservation will always take over, unless of course it's like your kids or your spouse or something. I think if you don't preserve yourself and you're trying to save the other ones, that's still kind of self-preservation in itself, as your gene pool, I guess, is going to live on, because then your genes can continue to spread your genes, because even though you're dead, your kids still have your DNA, and they will continue to spread their genes, and as they're supposed to, like that's it's kind of what the lobsters do, they eat and they breed. And the same thing, I guess, with humans. So if you give up yourself with your offspring, they will continue on your gene pool, and in a sense you're preserving your own lineage. But I guess the point at the end of this long little tangent is Peterson wants us to know that the dominance hierarchy has been around for 350 million years at least in lobsters, and it is here and present in humans. And it's arrogant to think that we can try to circumvent that. And I get it. He's somewhat right, but also I'm going to take on that little bit of arrogance and think that we can kind of overcome these primal urges. As I think it was Aeschylus, the Greeks said that we need to tame the savageness of man and make gentle the life of this world. That's from the RFK speech that he gave in Indianapolis when MLK died. That's one of my favorite speeches ever. And I think that's true. I think we can tame the savageness inside of us and, make a better world. Just like when people have to work on anger management, you have to overcome that anger in yourself. I'm not going to fight this person or whatever it is. I'm going to take a moment here and I'm going to overcome that. I'm going to have the strength to overcome that anger inside of me. Okay, page 11 through 15, which is the nature of nature section. Okay, this one was kind of a doozy. I had to reread this section a few times to fully understand it. I remember in my freshman year of high school, it was my favorite English teacher I ever had. And he was big on quotes. We had to memorize these quotes and these people and the years they lived. And I remember one of the quotes was, "There's no such thing as reading, there is only rereading." And that one's by Ezra Pound. And I don't remember the years that he lived. It was like 1800s to the 1900s or something, which I think is true, because I had to reread this section in order to try to understand at least my version, and I don't think I fully understand it yet. I know Peterson is big on, he's a fast talker, a fast thinker, and it's hard to keep up with his thoughts sometimes. And so I had to reread this section a few times. So if we're going to start off with page 12 here on this 11 through 15 section. Peterson's talking about the dominance hierarchy and how it's not, I guess this part is about nature and fitness, and that it would be a huge error to think that it's static and that it's not changing. And he says at the bottom here, if that demand is conceptualized as static, which is, or I guess I'll start before this. He's talking about fit and fitness, and that just means you're trying to match, the organisms to the environmental demand, right? Because if nature's making a selection and you're in nature, that's the environment. You have to adhere to the environmental requirements. Just like if I'm in the desert, I would want to be a cactus because they can go a long time without water. Whereas if I'm in the rainforest, I got to be able to take on a lot of rain. You got to adhere to that environmental demand. So he says if that demand is conceptualized as static, if nature is conceptualized as eternal and unchanging, then evolution is a never-ending series of linear improvements, and fitness is something that can be ever more closely approximated across time. So that one I had to reread a lot, and I think my thoughts are, I know he's trying to talk about order and chaos, and if nature is purely static, that is like the opposite of chaos. Like, you can predict everything accurately and you can track everything, as far as evolution, and that just isn't true. Things are always changing, but you want to have like this organized chaos, and to think that nature is static and it's just these small little linear improvements, and if it can be approximated across time, that would just be I guess like juvenile to think that nature isn't always changing, because it always is. And the nature of humans, I think, is always changing, especially to meet the environmental demand, depending on where you live in your life, depending on what country you visit. There's different customs, different things you have to adhere to, and the world around you, and the technology, and it's always changing. And so you can't just think it's going to be static and you can predict the next move, because there is chaos in the world. But then if you go to page 13, he wants us to see that nature is not simply dynamic either. It's not always changing. Some things take a while to change, and you can really focus on some things and have some predictability. So life isn't always chaos and changing, but there can be some order in life, and you can control some things in your own life. So that way it's it's chaos, but it's controlled chaos. And one thing he wants us to see is that it's hard to see, but he wants us to know that the dominance hierarchy is one of those things that is slowly changing. And in this case, he says that it's it has permanence. It's going to be unchanging for now. And what he's trying to, I believe what he's trying to get us to realize is that the dominance hierarchy will always be around. It's instilled in humans, and even if we try to fight it, it's still going to be there a little bit. And I think he wants us to realize that no matter how good people want to be, and to be a good person, and live your life, helping others and doing all that good stuff, there will still be a dominance hierarchy there. And to better your life, it is better to kind of climb that dominance hierarchy, so that way you can be the lobsters with the good shelter and the good food and the best mates, because it can, you don't have to be rich or anything. There's plenty of people who aren't rich that are happy, and there's plenty of rich people that are unhappy. But you want to realize that there is a dominance hierarchy in humans, and you kind of have to climb that, and that will help you, I think, mentally be, live a more fulfilling life if you climb that dominance hierarchy. And then another thing is, like on page 14, he also wants us to realize that this dominance hierarchy is not a social construct. So I think that plays along with the arrogance thing. The dominance hierarchy is not some social construction that we have made, I guess, through, he says it's not capitalism and it's not communism. It's not something that we have just made in this generation, or these past few generations. It has been here for millions and millions of years. People have always competed with other people for resources and shelter and I guess breeding or whatever you want, but people have always competed. Just like I said before, if I'm choosing me or you, I'm probably going to choose me. And you can still live your life and be a good person, but you also have to live for yourself as well. You can be a selfless person, but you also have to be selfish as well sometimes. Okay. And then page 15 through 17, he's talking about the top and the bottom, and we already touched on this. Like, the best lobsters have the best shelter and food and mates, and the bottom lobsters have barely any food, horrible shelter, and zero mates or nothing like that. And I don't, that's not necessarily true for all humans. There's plenty of rich people that are miserable out there. There's plenty of celebrities that, they have good food, good shelter, but at the end of the day, they're still, struggling to sleep at night. They'll be taking sleeping pills or whatever, and just to help them sleep at night and to just rest, which is really terrible. And then there's like some people that are out there and they have absolutely nothing, but they're still struggling and doing anything that they can to survive, because there's something about them inside them. I guess it's that self-preservation, but also maybe that there is something out there that's worth living for. And there's plenty of people that like don't have a lot of things, but they're plenty happy. They're very fulfilled in their lives. And so you don't have to have the best food and best shelter, which I understand what Peterson's getting at, and I don't think he's trying to make like a generalization with human beings. And I'm sure he would agree with me that you don't have to be rich to be happy. But I think he's just trying to help you. But being rich helps put a lot of stress about other things out the window. If your car breaks down and you have to go to the mechanic and pay like $3,000 to get it fixed, if you can just do that and not have to worry, you're like, all right, just fix it, and there goes $3,000 and it's gone, but you don't have to worry about how am I going to make this payment. That's a big stress out of your life. So then you can focus on other things, about either your emotional health or your kids' health or something like that. You can transition your focus elsewhere if you have the money and the means to take care of things. And so if you climb the dominance hierarchy, you'll more likely have the money and the shelter, so that way you can focus on other things. Have time to read books like this and reflect on yourself and reflect with other people for self-improvement. And so I understand what he's saying with the lobsters. I don't think he is making a generalization about humans as well. And you don't have to be super wealthy, but I think he just wants us to understand that if you climb the dominance hierarchy, it will make your life easier, so you can focus on the things that I think you really want to focus on. You don't have to struggle for that next paycheck to make sure you pay rent and stuff like that. Page 24, he's talking about, standing up for yourself and saying no to tyranny. Here at the top of page 24, if you say no early in the cycle of oppression and you mean what you say, which means you state your refusal in no uncertain terms and stand behind it, then the scope for oppression on the part of the oppressor will remain properly bounded and limited. So if you stand up for yourself and you say, even though it's really, really hard to do, and you say no in the face of oppression, that's going to stop those people in their tracks. If we think back to McMurphy and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, when he first got in there, he did not know that the big nurse kind of controlled if he would get out or not, but he was standing up to her and trying to make changes among the men in the ward to make life better for him, but also better for the men. And it stopped her in her tracks, and it got her out of her flow. And that's completely true. You do have to stand up for yourself and have that confidence. And I guess, if you stand up straight, I guess I should be a little straighter with your shoulders back, and you build that serotonin, you'll have the confidence to stand up for yourself and say no. And then, of course, those who genuinely can't afford to, it's like, he also says that if you can't really afford to stand up for your own rights, then it is understandable. And, McMurphy realized in the middle of the book, I cannot keep fighting her or else I will never get out of here. So he kind of just had to give in, which is a little sad. Page 25. He is talking about, he's talking about mayhem and destruction. So here in the middle of page 25, he says, to say it again, there is very little difference between the capacity for mayhem and distraction, integrated, and the strength of character. And I struggled trying to really understand what he's saying here, and through thinking it through, rereading the pages, and trying to understand the difference for the capacity for mayhem and destruction integrated, and the strength of character. There's little difference between those two. I mean, if you're capable of causing mayhem or destruction, or even having to put up with it and continue on with your life, I mean, that's hard to do. That takes a lot of strength. One, to either be good with destroying other people's lives, or just taking the brunt of it and someone's trying to destroy your life and causing mayhem and destruction. To just take that on that takes a lot of strength. But also it takes a lot of strength to stand up for those people, not to just take it and not to dish out mayhem and destruction, but to have that strength of character to stand up to oppression, and to be a good person, to have the confidence and to stand up straight with your shoulders back. That also takes a lot of strength and character. And then he goes on to saying, like, maybe you're a loser and maybe you're not, and whatever you are, you can still change. And I think he wants you to change by reading this book, and to become a more confident and live a more fulfilled life. And it's a lot of people, they like to say it's never too late to start over. And with some things, if you hurt someone, they probably won't forget, and you can't just start over. But there is ways to start your life over, to become fresh and good again. I don't know if you've ever seen the show Longmire. There was a quote, I think it's in like season 1. I forget the character. It's Longmire's friend from the reservation. I can't remember his name, but he's like, a man may be willing to change overnight, but the world won't be so quick to forgive him. And that is very true. Like, if I have been living as a terrible person my whole life, and then the next day I'm like, all right, I'm going to be a good person now. You may think that in your own head, but the world's not going to forget what you've done to them. They're not just like, oh, okay, cool, you're going to be a good person now. Let's all right, awesome. That's just not going to happen. But I think slowly over time, if you continue to show other people that you are changing and that you have changed, they'll eventually get there too. Okay, and then page 27. He's continuing to talk about standing up straight with your shoulders back, and it's not just for your physical appearance, but it also helps you emotionally become confident and strong. And he says, life is pain and there's struggle and it's inescapable, but if you can face that voluntarily and face that head on and face that confidently, it will make life easier. And I think that's completely true. I know that the psychological studies on like the Superman position, if you have to like publicly speak or go do something hard, if you stand like Superman or whatever, if you've seen Ted Lasso, the owner of Richmond, the tall blonde lady, I also forget her name, she does like that pose or whatever before she goes and talks to the other men, the other owners and stuff like that. That has proven to increase the serotonin, your confidence in yourself and stuff like that. So there is truth to standing tall and stuff like that, because it not only makes you seem more confident, your appearance to others, but also on the inside. And really, you don't even have to do that if that's not what gets you going. It's kind of nerdy, but I think it's from like the trailer of the 9th Star Wars that came out, Rise of Skywalker? I forget what it is, the 9th one that came out with Rey, when she finds out that big secret of hers. It's Mark Hamill who plays Luke Skywalker. He's doing like he's talking over the video, and he's like, confronting fear is the destiny of a Jedi. And like sometimes when I have to go do something hard or I'm a little bit scared, it's like I think about that sometimes and it helps me out. You know, because it'd be cool to be a Jedi, but you know, to live your life where you have to confront fear and to take it head on and take it proud and confidently will help you get through that thing. And whatever that is, I hope you find it. That's the first rule. Stand up straight with your shoulders back. Next video, what is the second rule? Treat yourself like someone you are responsible for helping. So look out for the next video. Thank you.